Hey Tech Math, here is the guided notes for 6.7. Notice the homework for this one is number 7. So, if we want to change 4.8 kilometers to centimeters up here in the bell work, we start from over here. Let's bring it over here. We notice that if we're going from kilometers all the way over to centimeters, we are moving the decimal 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times to the right. I'm going to do, I know you can't really see my calculator, but 23.75 minus 0.125. So my lower limit is going to be 23.625 inches. And that's my lower limit, and it's got to be between that and my upper limit, which is going to be 23.75 plus 0.125. My upper limit is then going to be 23.875 inches. So if we do that, let's answer the question. If it ends up being 23.752, is that within that tolerance interval? Well, since it's less than this number and greater than this number, it is in our tolerance interval. So this number is okay. All right, let's jump to the next one. The specifications for the gap width between the door and fender of a luxury car could be stated as a 1/4 inch. So, what is the upper limit, lower limit, and tolerance interval for that gap? What I didn't give you on the sheet was actually the tolerance itself. So this is my baseline. This is what I expect it to be. My tolerance interval, which I will end up finding, my tolerance itself, you'll have to add in here in your notes. The tolerance for this is plus or minus 1/32 of an inch. So we don't want a lot of tolerance here. If it's supposed to be a 1/4 inch gap, it really should be a 1/4 inch gap. So what's the upper limit? Well, essentially, the way we're going to find this is by doing our 1/4 inch plus or minus our tolerance, which is 1/32 of an inch. So to find our upper limit, we're going to do 1/4 plus 1/32. Well, how do we add our fractions? They have to have a common denominator. So how do I write this as something over 32? I notice I have to multiply the bottom by 8 to get there. So I also have to do the top. If I multiply by 8, I have to multiply the top by 8 as well. So 1/4 inch is the same thing as 8 over 32. So for my upper limit, I'm going to say 8 over 32 plus 1 over 32. It's going to be 9/32 inch. For my lower limit, I'm going to take that 1/4 inch minus the 1/32. So 8 minus 1 is going to be 7/32. So my full upper and lower limit, when I put them together, I know that my tolerance interval has to be somewhere between 7/32 inch and 9/32 inch. Not a very big gap there. And this is how I would write my upper limit, my lower limit, and my tolerance interval. I'm just going to shorthand and say TI. Alright, last one. I also forgot to put the tolerance on this one. So the tolerance for this one is going to be plus or minus 5%. So we need to find the maximum and minimum allowable resistance and the tolerance interval. So we're going to have 1,300 ohms plus or minus 5%. However, before we can do this, you should notice that we can't combine ohms and percentages. So before we do this, we have to find 5% of 1,300. Bringing it back to the beginning of the school year, how do we find 5% of something? Well, 5% as a decimal is 0.05. Of is the same thing as multiplication, and we just leave that 1,300 alone. So what is 5% of 1,300? It's 65. and we found 5% so that we could put it in ohms. So 1300 plus 5% is the same thing as 1300 plus or minus 65 ohms. Now they are in the same label, so now we can find our interval. What is our lower limit? It's going to be 1300 minus 65 because we need to subtract. Our limit is 1235 ohms. Our upper limit is going to be that 1300 plus 65. That one's a little bit easier. And our tolerance interval is just going to be those two put together. So 1235 to 1365, excuse me, ohms is my tolerance interval. That's all there is for it. So when you're on the test, it's going to ask you for an upper limit, a lower limit, and the tolerance interval, which is just the two put together. This says this is the range of values that we are okay with having for whatever the problem is that we're figuring out.